Parents, ask your children what they know if your kids are over there. They know something. If these kids stand together, we can put an end to this. Otherwise, kids are going to keep dying. The people are going to keep dying. These people mean it. They're not kidding. They're dangerous. This isn't just one crime. And the police officer did say it was parallel crimes.
I'm glad you said that again. So you said parallel crimes last night. Crimes. Yeah. I'm sorry, Dago, were you going to say something?
I was just getting ready to state, I think everybody's thinking the same thing.
The same thing? Mm-hmm.
Just asked to clarify that as well. And a couple other people did. So if you want to go into that, Kim, whatever you can with that, that would be perfect.
I will go into I will not go into one side of it, but I will go into
hold on one quick second. Are you talking about parallel investigations? Because I know last night you had said the FBI were already there, blah, blah, blah. What happened on the night of, November 13th kind of interfered with something else they already had going on. And I had asked in chat, was it FBI and say DEA, were already like on the ground and, had an operation going, and then 11/22 that happening just kind of like blew up everything.
It's a special task force.
I will say before you go any further with that, I'm going to say, and nobody's going to pressure her, there is one specific investigation she's not going to talk about. I already know what it's about, and it's going to be left alone. And if nobody likes that, you're going to have to deal with it, because I will not allow her to talk about it on my channel for her own well-being, and she doesn't want to do it anyway. So that's where we're going to go from here on out. Once again, my apologies. Go ahead and continue. I'm sorry.
So they're trying to so it's a drug task force. It's a quad. I think it's called the Quad 4, and it's in different areas, and they've brought Moscow into it recently. They've been there since about 2015. They have been working on this drug problem, and it's a crisis actually over there. And I do believe that the children were harmed because they knew something, and it was a notice, put everybody else on notice to shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Tailgating tickets, those I've never heard of them. Those are about, we're watching you. Noise complaints, we're listening. Keep your mouth shut. That's what that is. That's what I truly and firmly believe that happened here. That's what this is. And I believe they're very close to solving where they were, and it blew it out of the water. And that's what I really believe happened. And there's many legs to it, right? If you think about how many people were over there. I called the FBI and they were there.
What you believe the motive of the crime was?
To shut them up. I believe that it was initiated to shut them up, and I believe maybe the people who were hired to do it or told to do it went overboard.
Transnational drug traffickers and criminal organizations often look to increase profits and market control through diversification. This means using trafficking routes for drugs, labor, sex, and violence.
Human trafficking, and particularly child trafficking, underlies every other great crime in this country. Children are now more valuable than drugs for criminal transactions.
Today, children will work overnight shifts at slaughterhouses, factories, restaurants to pay their debts to smugglers and traffickers. Today, children will be sold for sex. Today, children will call a hotline to report they are being abused, neglected, and trafficked. And we don't know if they're going to get the help they need.
We missed out on a really smart person that was going to be a little conservative. She was conservative too. She was always looking up stories on child, getting trafficked, and she was telling me that she thinks it's a lot bigger than people understand.
Toward 8 million children a year. In the United States, it's 800,000 to 1 million.
Wow.
All right. This is very serious stuff.
For nearly a decade, unaccompanied children have been suffering in the shadows. And I have to confess, I knew nothing about their suffering until 2021, when I volunteered to help the Biden administration with the crisis at the southern border. As part of Operation Artemis, I was deployed to the Pomona Fairplex Emergency Intake Site in California to help HHS, Office of Refugee Resettlement, reunite children with sponsors in the United States. I thought I was going to help place children in loving homes. Instead, I discovered that children are being trafficked through a sophisticated network that begins with recruiting in home country, smuggling to the U.S. border, and ends when ORR delivers a child to a sponsor. Some sponsors are criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations. Some sponsors view children as commodities and assets to be used for earning income. This is why we are witnessing an explosion of labor trafficking. Now, whether it's intentional or not, it could be argued that the United States government has become the middleman in a large-scale, multi-billion-dollar child trafficking operation that is run by bad actors seeking to profit off of the lives of children.
Created by Congress in 1988, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas, or HIDTA program, coordinates and assists federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies to address regional drug threats. There are currently a total of 33 HIDTAs in all 50 states and U.S. territories. In 2020, Kootenai County was added to the Oregon-Idaho HIDTA. 3 of our victims are from Kootenai County, which includes the city of Coeur d'Alene, about an hour and a half north of Moscow. There are 2 main drug trafficking routes in northern Idaho. Authorities say traffickers use I-90 and US Route 95 to transport drugs. Idaho State Police say this area had the most illegal drug seizures in Idaho in recent years. These 2 major highways intersect in the city of Coeur d'Alene, with I-90 running east to west and US Route 95 north to south. 95 South, in fact, connects Coeur d'Alene to Moscow. This major north to south highway actually bisects the city of Moscow. 95 also serves to connect Kootenai County to other high-intensity drug trafficking areas in southern Idaho and Oregon.
Is it true that people in that house have sold products?
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
And you've bought from them, or other people have, or you guys like throw down
100%.
together?
Yep, all the above.
Who do you think was the target?
The house. If I'm going to be honest, I think the kids on Greek Road were the target. I think all the kids were the target. I think people are taking advantage of these kids. That's what I think. And it could have been any one of our kids. And so this house, and being a real estate broker and doing a lot of construction sales, and also knowing that Greek Road, they have these little secret panels behind walls and things, that there is crawls throughout that house that are just naturally there from additions over time and from the geotech of the landscape. So that house, and I'm sure in the rafters, likely something could be behind the walls. And so I did call them, and then that night I saw in the news, it was dark. They went back in there, and I don't know if they got anything out or not.
That's partially from Washington, maybe an FBI field office from the Idaho area. But did you ask if they were from FBI or what jurisdiction? And they just said, nothing to see here?
Yeah, they would give me nothing. And I did call Moscow police, no answer, no response. So no explanation for any of this, but they were clearly inside on a mission.
I believe that there's an element that is targeting these kids who are Greek because they can't get on Greek Road. So they target the kids who are Greek to work for them and to get involved in all of this nonsense. There's human trafficking going on.
I was going to say, make sure you hear that clear, guys. She said human trafficking, not drug trafficking too. Okay. So yeah, that's a big deal in that area. So
DHS defines human trafficking as involving the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. Human traffickers use various forms of force, fraud, and coercion to control and exploit victims. These forms include imposing of debt, fraudulent employment opportunities, false promises of love or a better life, psychological coercion, and violence or threats of violence. The crime of human trafficking hinges on the exploitation of another person. People often falsely believe that human trafficking implies victims must be moved from one place to another to qualify as a victim. Human trafficking does not require transportation to be considered a crime. It is a crime that can be committed against an individual who has never left their hometown. Victims can be any age, race, gender, immigration status, socioeconomic status. The Department of Homeland Security considers college students particularly vulnerable to this crime for a variety of reasons, such as living away from home, often for the first time, economic instability and dependence, and the common use of alcohol or substances on college campuses. Traffickers use drugs and alcohol as tools to lure potential victims, groom them, and ultimately control them. They exploit individuals' opioid use or substance use disorders to coerce them into trafficking, knowing that they are more vulnerable than individuals without substance use disorders. Human trafficking is the second largest criminal enterprise on this planet, just behind illegal drug trafficking. According to the DOJ, it is a $150 billion per year global industry, with an estimated 27 million victims worldwide at any given time. Many experts estimate that human trafficking will soon overtake drug trafficking as the largest criminal enterprise. See, for many traffickers, it doesn't matter what product is being sold. Drugs, sex, and labor are all highly lucrative markets. Violent criminals like this see no difference as long as money is made. For example, cartels will often use trafficked women to smuggle drugs across the border, doubling the exploitation and the money they can take from them. Traffickers use insecurity, embarrassment, fear of retaliation, and intimidation to control their victims. Some victims of human trafficking can feel like their new lifestyle was a choice, and so they really have no one else to blame for their current situation. I'm not suggesting that our victims were being sex trafficked or engaging in commercial sex at all, for that matter. I simply don't have any evidence of this. That being said, I do think some of the information that has been uncovered about the victims' lives leading up to their murders does point to the possibility of human trafficking activity, specifically as it pertains to the forced labor aspect of the definition. This is not a supposition I make lightly, so I will back it up by breaking down the 3 elements that are required to constitute the crime of human trafficking for the purposes of forced labor. Acts plus means plus purpose equals the crime of trafficking. All 3 elements must be met in order to constitute the crime. The acts element is met when the trafficker recruits, harbors, transports, provides, or obtains a person for labor or services. In this situation, I think that local gang members and drug dealers recruit students, especially sorority girls, to be their on-campus dealers. The means element refers to the trafficker's use of force, fraud, or coercion. This is where the manipulation, intimidation, and threats of violence come into play. I'll provide some specific examples of this in a minute. And the last element, purpose, focuses on the perpetrator's goal to exploit a person's labor or services. Here, this would refer to the facilitation of sales and distribution of drugs throughout the UI campus, specifically the Greek life community. Frankly, a lot of mysterious deaths, violence, and bizarre circumstances indicative of gang activity occur on UI's campus, specifically surrounding Greek life and the King Road neighborhood. And it seems like every single time Moscow police does not ask any questions, they are all too willing to look the other way.
Freaky though. I don't know why they shoved everything in my suitcase.
Can I get my case number? Honestly, I think you're right. I think if I took a wild guess, maybe they were trying to take your car and they were like,
"We don't need these clothes."
Copy.
The stuff they put in my suitcase is so random.
There's no chance someone's playing a prank on you.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I don't see why anyone I know would ever do that.
Yeah.
But and then I found my underwear shoved right there.
In the cup holder?
Yeah, and I took it out. But it was in there, and I was like, that's really weird.
and you said nothing's missing of your knowledge?
Not that I can tell.
Okay.
Oh, no, you're good.
This side either.
Yeah.
Take one. I tend to forget to lock my car. People think, oh, it's Moscow.
Yeah.
They know.
It's safe, but there's always,
I'm just glad I took my TV out. That would have sucked.
Yep. You have any questions or anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Right. Is this an alpha fee?
Yeah.
All right.
Sweet.
Nice.
How did you know?
Alpha fee on your pants.
Oh.
Yeah.
On the morning of May 1st, 2022, just about 6 months before the murders, 19-year-old freshman Hudson Lindau was found dead in a creek on UI's campus just a stone's throw away from Creek Row. Police almost immediately ruled out foul play, and it was ruled an accidental drowning, and everyone just kind of moved on. But questions remain as to how he got in this creek and could have drowned in what appears to be very shallow water. Here's a picture of Hudson at what appears to be the 1118 house, which is the same address where the body cam footage of the car burglary occurred just 2 months before his death. And as you can see, the 1122 house is in the background. Hudson Lindau's death is very similar to a 2013 mysterious death that also occurred on a Saturday night on the campus of University of Idaho. UI freshman Joseph Widerick, 18, was seen drinking at a fraternity house on January 19, 2013, and slipped out shortly after midnight. Investigators believe he wandered off for about 4 hours, eventually taking cover under a bridge where he died of hypothermia. Once again, the possibility of foul play quickly ruled out if even considered. In February 2017, several Creek Row houses woke up to a grisly sight: dead coyotes on their front doorsteps. We were I guess unsure why that was happening, but we got rid of it, said Pi Kappa Phi President Ethan Ennis. Ennis says these coyote killings were pretty gruesome. The coyote's body was mangled, and he says the sorority across the street got it even worse. Ennis said at Pi Beta Phi, there was more blood on the doorstep, even some smeared on the window. Police said it appears the coyotes were shot, which they are quick to point out is not illegal in Idaho. Moscow police say on January 20th, a student left a coyote carcass at a sorority as part of a drunken dare. It's still unclear if this incident is related. Quote, "We don't have enough information as to who actually committed it, so we don't know if it's a continuation of that prank or if someone else is doing something," end quote, said Moscow Police Captain Tyson Barrett. In the state of Idaho, all you need is a hunting license. You don't need a tag or anything like that, and you can hunt on public land, said Barrett. So once again, we have Moscow police dismissing disturbing and menacing behavior against students, specifically Greek life students, as just a silly prank, a mere coincidence, or completely unrelated to deeper issues that may suggest that Moscow perhaps isn't such a safe community.
Could drugs be involved in all of this?
I have not heard that there's any suspicion that drugs played a role in the killings.
So not like a drug deal gone bad or something like that?
I am not aware of anything like that, no.
This is stuff that shouldn't happen, especially in a small, quiet town like Moscow is, where we're heavily involved with the university. And these are things that affect not just town, but the university, the students, lends everybody to a sense of insecurity about what's going on here and why.
I'll tell you what's going on in Moscow, in my personal opinion. Contrary to the narrative describing Moscow as the embodiment of a quaint little college town where nothing bad ever happens, a darker force seems to linger in the shadows. It is clear to me that an organized crime syndicate, perhaps enforced by local and regional gang members, has gripped control of this community. This ruthless syndicate appears to have corrupted Moscow's power-hungry local authorities and compromised its money-driven institutions, exploiting the vulnerable and leaving everyone else in a state of fear, helplessness, and compliance. As Kim suggested, it appears that Greek life and the King Road neighborhood specifically is a target market for drug traffickers for obvious reasons. This operation is lucrative and organized. I believe they send in corrupted cops to intimidate and monitor the activity of the key addresses used for stashing and trafficking drugs. Likely through psychological manipulation, false promises of economic prosperity, and even coercion by exploiting substance use disorders. These students are, in my opinion, lured into accepting a deal that they did not fully understand the repercussions of. One day, you think you're just becoming the casual plug for the friend group or sorority so you can afford spring break and eyelash extensions. Everything is fine. You're not a drug dealer, you're just a broke college student with bills, sorority dues, and debt to pay. But now you're known around campus, all the frat guys want your number, and it's a good feeling to hook your friends up and have some beer money in your pocket. Besides, you're like totally cool with your suppliers, everyone knows them, they'll even stick around to smoke a blunt after dropping off product. It's just a side hustle, and you believe you can opt out at any time. But now it's senior year, and things are starting to heat up. Your suppliers are under stress and have dropped the friendly facade, taking on a much more menacing, even threatening demeanor. Things are getting scary, and it's just not worth it anymore. You and your friends decide you want out. But now, all of a sudden, you have cops banging on your doors and collecting your information, elusive individuals following you around downtown, and perhaps even more sinister messages of intimidation intended to get you and your friend group to fall back in line, or else.
Did Kaylee ever talk to you about a potential stalker?
She did.
She did.
Sometimes she would contact us and say, "You won't believe this guy was following me around. It felt weird."
You leave town, change your locks, and keep your head down, just hoping to make it to graduation and get the hell out of this town. But what are you supposed to do when those tasked with protecting you, ensuring your safety, and respecting your rights are complicit in the harassment and beneficiaries of your exploitation? You see, like you, they made their own deals with the devil and likewise are expected to fall in line. Part 2 will examine drug-related corruption, or narco-corruption as it's sometimes called, and its devastating impact on the community of Moscow. How the authorities let down these 4 young students and proceeded to cover it all up to save their own skin.
Please don't get distracted by the conspiracy theories, and I'll just be perfectly blunt. The nonsense that some people put out there just to stir the pot, that hurts the families all the more. That hurts the community all the more.